Never have I read a book series so lacking in originality than the Eragon books. Yet for some reason, I absolutely love these. I promise I'm not going to do too much trash talking with these books because like I said, I genuinely love them. I think these books are so much fun. But even its strongest fans have to admit that there is almost nothing original in these books. Is that a bad thing? No, not at all. Because the entertainment is there. I remember I first read Eragon. I think I had the original hardcover. Shortly after it first came out, I was a big fan of Lord of the Rings as a kid, and this was something that me in, what was it, second or third grade could digest well enough. The movie had recently come out that brought my attention to it, and my parents always encouraged us to read the books if we could first. So we got them. I plowed through it as quickly as possible and immediately wanted the next book. And I even loved the movie as a kid, and I had the PS2 video game. I still have it, actually. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I didn't stick with the books as a kid. We got Eldest on paperback, and I told my mom that I read it, and my brother read it kind of just to spite me so he could quiz me on it just to prove that I hadn't actually read it. That was a dick move, Mitch. And then when the third book came out, my mom bought it for me, like the brand new hardcover, and I was so excited because I kind of just wanted to have it. And I read about the first 2 chapters, maybe. Didn't understand a thing that was going on because I did skip book 2. And from there, kind of dropped the series as a whole. But back in 2020, I went back and I finally read them through, and I was blown away. I really kicked myself in the butt for not reading them as a kid because they are very compelling books. I want to go through this video calling them great, but I can't. I cannot call them great works of art or literature. Because here's the thing, for as much fun as they are, it is Star Wars with dragons. And I don't mean that it is the by the numbers hero's journey, which the first one is. Past that, it gets so on the nose for the original Star Wars trilogy. And if you don't believe me, let's go through them one by one. Eragon, the farm boy that lives with his uncle. The Empire controls everything. There's a wise old man in town that reminisces about the old days and this group of magical beings that, brought peace to the world. Eragon finds the MacGuffin, which gets Brahm's attention, Ben's attention, and tells him, hey, you're a wizard, Harry. And this MacGuffin sends them on a quest to escape the Empire because the Empire is looking for this MacGuffin. Along the way, they realize that there is a princess who is being locked in the Emperor's right-hand man's tower. They go in, rescue the princess. He sacrifices himself. They get a rogue scallion side character to help them on their journey. They make a mad dash to the rebels' hidden base. The Empire starts closing in, blah, blah, blah. There's a big battle. The only thing that's different about this book plot-wise from Star Wars is that they actually killed the Darth Vader type. But it's pretty much beat for beat the exact same book. Now, a lot of this is the typical hero's journey plot beats, and that's fine. George Lucas did the same thing, kind of ripping off a bunch of other material, but he remixed it in an original enough way. And like the Eragon books, it was fun as hell. So this one does get some leeway. It rips off Star Wars, but Star Wars also ripped off a bunch of other stuff, and we love that one anyway. But then we get to the second book. Eldest has 2 main story threads. The first one is our magical protagonist who, after a battle, leaves to find a great magical master that can instruct him in these magical arts, who is living in exile. While the second plot thread follows the rest of the rebellion as they try to gather their forces and prepare for a final attack on the Empire. That's a bit more on the nose than a general hero's journey. And there is even and I won't spoil it here because I do think you should read these books. Again, nothing I'm saying here should deter you from reading this series. There is the third act twist of a familial relationship. Not a relationship, like they're not dating. There's not a surprise dating going on here. But it's not I'm your father, but it's pretty darn close, even though we will get to that later on. This book is Empire Strikes Back with dragons. But okay, he was a young author at the time. He was just getting his footing as a creative. The first one, it's very general. The second one, it's a bit on the nose. The third one has to be further out of line than Return of the Jedi, right? Right? Wrong. Wrong. Very, very wrong. Brisker and Inheritance are really part 1 and part 2 of Return of the Jedi. So much so that the opening of Brissinger is just the attack on Jabba's palace. One of the side characters has been kidnapped at the end of Inheritance by a side villain who's kind of on the Empire's side, but not really. They're kind of just henchmen that are allowed to operate within the Empire's domain. And it's not just that Eragon and his team of protagonists go in, try kind of undercover to retrieve this side character from captivity, but just like Han Solo, he has been temporarily blinded and he is slowly recovering his sight. It is the exact same opening to a T. And then from there, all the rebels get back together and they realize there is a master plan the Empire has to completely annihilate them. And as they are preparing for this battle, Eragon/Luke realizes there is something that I have to do real quick to finally defeat the Emperor while saving this side character that I truly care about. So, yeah, it's Star Wars. It is Star Wars. There's the Battle of Endor in a way. There is the same opening. There's the same emotional payoff, the same resolutions, just in a fantasy aspect. And I wish I could say that at least the fantasy part of it was original and fun, but it is fun, but 90% of it is also unoriginal. This I care much less about than ripping off the plot of Star Wars, though. It's very much a Middle-earth kind of world with very, I don't want to call Middle-earth basic fantasy, but classic fantasy. Tolkien drew from real-world mythology inspirations to create his Middle-earth. There was a lot of his own original lore created to lay the foundation for this world, but the types of creatures we get and the use of magic is very much rooted in his understanding of classic mythology. And if you think I'm talking out my ass, then try reading the histories of Middle-earth books or even his own translations of classic poetry. And aside from the Urgals, which are pretty much just orcs, but taller and more brutish, it's discount Middle-earth. But again, I don't mind. See, last week, Lex and I were watching Sleeping Beauty. And as we were watching, I was thinking, I really enjoyed this type of fantasy. It's very subtle, it's kind of by the numbers, it's very simple. And sometimes that's really all you want. High fantasy is super fun, especially when it goes out of its way to be creative and give you something fresh and original. I've heard that is a lot of Brandon Sanderson's type of writing, and I can't wait to read it. But there's also something very fun about simple fantasy. There's elves, there's dwarves, there's magic, there's dragons, bada bing, that's all you need. That's all you need. And honestly, Christopher Paolini does do some interesting stuff with it. I really enjoy his rules for magic, which I've kind of taken inspiration for in my own sci-fi world building for Empire of the Void. So again, I'm not knocking his fantasy world building because it is something I enjoy. It's a style that I really appreciate. But it can never be called original. And again, that sums up his whole book series. And I really wish I could say it was just the Inheritance books that I can say about this, but it's not really. Even To Sleep in a Sea of Stars is kind of a hodgepodge of sci-fi classic films. But just like the Inheritance cycle, I'm not complaining about that because he is a very talented writer. He knows how to tell a compelling story. He knows what makes these stories that he's taking inspiration from work. And I think it's very important as a fan of the series and for fans of the series to acknowledge this. I will always defend my love of the Eragon books, but if I'm getting into a discussion comparing and contrasting different authors' fantasy world building, we cannot say that the Eragon books are top tier. We can call them great stories, super fun stories, and stories that should be remembered and passed down, share with their kids, but they unfortunately do not reach the heights that I wish they would within certain realms of discussion. Do I think that the books would have been better if they were wholly original? Honestly, no. Because at the end of the day, what I love about it is that the series is a very successful, a very enjoyable, and a very well written what if book. What if Star Wars had dragons? What if Star Wars took place in Middle Earth? And that is awesome. This is one of my favorite fan fiction books ever. So if you've seen Star Wars, then I'm sorry this book series is spoiled for you, but I still recommend it. Now, some of you may be thinking, okay, but what are your thoughts on the Eragon movie? And I'm happy to share, but not in this video. This is a book video. We're talking about books right now. Come back for the video, the movie video. I'll do that.